So we're looking at question number 2. The paper we're looking at is the previous paper, which is the 2024 paper October. 2024 paper October. So question 1 is what we did already. So I want us to look at something to do with maybe the conceptual framework, question number 2. Okay, so conceptual framework lies at the center of an empirical study. The conceptual framework serves as a guide and a ballast to research, functioning as an integrating ecosystem that helps researchers intentionally bring all aspects of the study together through a process that explicates their connections, conjunctions, overlaps, tensions, and connects, shaping a research setting and study of phenomenon in that setting. As a researcher, it is vital to understand the conceptual framework, what its component parts and how they interact, and how it's used as a guide for high quality rigorous research. Keeping that in mind, Sonda is proposing a research study and formulated the following conceptual framework. So this is a conceptual framework. Look at it carefully. So now having look at this, we can now look at the follow-up questions. That's the conceptual framework. Study it properly. What is the conceptual framework before we even answer? So the questions that we seek to answer here, number 1 are identify and classify the types of variables. Then what are the constructs in this research? And identify the constructs that are provided. Then explain the relationship between the conceptual and theoretical framework, and also formulate 2 statistical hypotheses. So we must firstly understand that in research, variables and hypotheses are very central in our formulation of a meaningful conclusion. So we need to understand how these elements intertwine, how they fit together, how they're essential for designing, for conducting and analyzing research studies. So variables are important in research. We classify variables in 3. What key variables do we use when coming up with research? So we have what we call dependent variables, dependent variable, moderating variables, and control variables. So independent variables are the causes or factors that are assumed to influence the dependent variable. So in a conceptual framework, we can identify what our independent variables are. But these are factors that in our context will reflect how the project is structured. So these are independent variables. We also have what are called dependent variables and intervening variables. What are dependent variables? Dependent variables are the outcome. So these are the outcome that we want to, that are influenced by the independent variables. So these are what we want to measure. And we also have intervening variables. These are variables that influence the strength or the direction of the relationship. And when you're dealing with constructs in the research, the concept of a theoretical idea, that is what we call a construct. the concept that needs to be explained. So constructs cannot directly be measurable, but they can be um, inferred from the measurable variables. So understanding constructs basically these are generally complex concepts that operationalize the measurable variables in research. So they'll give you a theoretical grounding of a phenomenon. They give you an idea that will guide you in data collection. So these are called constructs. So also have a theoretical framework. The theoretical framework is important in research because it helps us clearly understand um, the background of the research, the theories that formed the basis of the research. So they use the existing literature or theories that are relevant. So the theoretical framework will help us understand why certain relationships exist. Okay, then we also have the conceptual framework, which is a logic framework, which is derived from the theoretical framework. So it is a visual aid that brings those theoretical frameworks into light, into a model. So we've been given a structure to follow here, a model. So this is a model that we've been given here. We have project modeling, we have selection, feasibility, reliability. And here we have structural factors like project goals, project scope. Then we have this line that goes sustainability of entrepreneurial projects. Okay. So before we even go in depth in explaining what is involved here, can somebody tell us what is happening in your own logic? What is this conceptual framework trying to do?
Connecting variables.
Yes, just tell a story about what you are seeing. What is the conceptual framework trying to explain? So this conceptual framework is a blueprint that is helping us understand a problem. It is showing us how these factors are connected to each other. So it's explaining how factors affect success or sustainability when you're dealing with entrepreneurial projects. So some of the parts that I can see, basically, I can see parts of the project modeling factors, as in is involved in project planning. So I'm trying to help you simplify, um, I'm trying to help you simplify understanding of the concept framework regardless of your background. So I'll be using layman's language. So there are some of the factors that we can see there, like selection, choosing the right kind of project here, feasibility. We're talking about what? Um, checking if the project is realistic or it's possible to carry out. Reliability, we're talking about ensuring that the project will continue to work. Okay, how reliable the project is. And there we go to the structural factors here, is organization of the project. So it has organized project goals. Okay, what the project wants to achieve there, the scope, the size and limits of the project, stakeholder. So these are stakeholders, are seeing the people, groups that are of interest in this project. Then also it is showing contextual factors here. Okay, project governance, regulatory factors, social cultural issues in this conceptual framework. So how the project is being managed, who is in charge, the regulatory factors, the rules and regulations, the socio-economic issues, the social factors that might impact the project. Then we have the main goal here, which is the dependent variable. Main goal here. So here we have what? Sustainability of entrepreneurial projects, innovation, productivity. Okay. So The project here is showing modeling factors, the structural factors, contextual factors. Then we're also showing a framework in short to understand how a success of an entrepreneurial project is influenced by how it is planned, which is a project modeling, and also how it's set up, which are the structural factors, and also the environment in which it will operate. These are the contextual factors. So these are factors together put, right? So now, based on that, we can now look at these questions here. So based on, let us classify the variables that are depicted in here, the research. So let's answer now. What are some of the, let's classify the types of variables in the research depicted above. Which variables can we identify in the research above? We have the independent variables. These are the factors that influence the impact on the other variables. So which ones are our independent variables in this case? It was a complex model, but I'm trying to simplify it just coming from somewhere.
Innovation could be an independent variable.
The diagram here, which ones are independent variables? We have the project modeling, the structural factors, and the contextual factors. All these are our independent variables. These are the factors that influence the outcome. So our outcome here is the sustainability of the entrepreneurial project. So these are everything is pointing to this. Okay. So these are independent variables, this is a dependent variable. Are you together? Are we following? So the dependent variable here, which is being measured as being affected by the dependent variable. So sustainability project, which is measured by what? Innovation, productivity, and institutional growth. Can somebody help me? Which one do you think is a moderating variable? You are looking at what could affect the relationship between the two independent. Mhm. So there's really clearly no moderating variable here, but this one can act, the contextual factors can act as what? Moderating variables in this case, like governance, regulatory factors, socioeconomic issues, they may act as moderating variables because they influence how the project model will affect sustainability. Okay, so let's go to, that was our 5 marks. So what are the constructs in the research? Let's identify what constructs are provided in the conceptual framework. What are the constructs in this conceptual framework? So constructs are the concepts or the ideas that the researcher will use to explain a phenomenon in a study. Okay? So they are theoretical elements that cannot directly be observed, but they are actually inferred from the variables. So constructs are things that will help us build the theories. So what are the constructs that we have in here? We have project modeling, we have structural factors, contextual factors, and sustainable. Those are the constructs. So project modeling is one of the constructs. So this construct, all these are the constructs that we're talking about here. Okay. A construct, I said, is a what? Is an abstract concept or idea that researchers will use to explain the phenomenon in this study. So here we have the following constructs. We have the project modeling construct, which includes factors like selection, feasibility, reliability. So here it represents the planning and designing of the project. We have the structural factors. This is a construct that includes goals, scope, stakeholders. So here They will describe how the organizational structure is. Then we also have the contextual factors. This is a construct that will provide governance, regulatory factors, as you can see, socioeconomic issues. And finally, we have the sustainability of entrepreneurial development projects. So this is the dependent constructs that will reflect how the success of the long-term viability of the project will be. So these are the constructs. Then the next question here was asking us to explain the relationship between the conceptual and the theoretical framework. What is the relationship between conceptual and theoretical framework? I explained that the relationship exists in that the theoretical framework is built on theories or the ideas in the research, okay, of previous studies. The conceptual framework is based on the theoretical framework. It shows you visual narratives. Okay, what is the relationship between the two? This is 5 marks. Theoretical framework and the conceptual framework. So the theoretical framework is based on what? The theories or ideas in the field of study. So it is upon what has been studied before, the models, the concepts that explain the relationship. So theoretical framework will give you a broad overview of the topic. The conceptual framework, on the other hand, is specific to this study. It now is created by you, the author, which is adapted, or you, the author, to adopt. So it is more practical in action. So in simple words, when you're talking about conceptual framework, it will provide you, theoretical framework provide you the academic foundation of the study, the past theories, whereas conceptual framework, it relates to a specific model that is useful for our study. All right. Then finally, but not the least, formulate 2 sets of statistical hypotheses from here. What hypothesis can we have in here? The now, the alternative hypothesis. What can be a now hypothesis? The project modeling factors have no effect on what? Sustainability of entrepreneurial development. Then the project model factors have an effect on the entrepreneurial development project. So we have the now hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. So that is one set of hypotheses. I repeat, we have a now and alternative hypothesis that is making us one. It's showing us the relationship that we have there. So we're going to look at this arrow between project modeling and sustainability and set one hypothesis there. So what hypothesis can we make? We can say our now hypothesis is that project modeling factors like selection, feasibility, reliability have no effect on the sustainability of entrepreneurial projects. Whereas the alternative hypothesis here is that project modeling factors like selection, feasibility have a significant effect on what? Sustainability. So this is set 1. Okay. Set 2, we can go to our what? Which other, try now, which other hypothesis can you create? Which other hypothesis can you create? You can use contextual factors and sustainability. Okay, each of these should end at the what? The dependent variable. So you can simply say the structural factors, which are project goals, scope, and stakeholders, have no effect on sustainability or entrepreneurial development. The alternative hypothesis, structural factors, in brackets, sustainability, goals, scope, and stakeholders have a significant impact. And you can also use contextual factors. Contextual factors have no significant effect on what? Sustainability. So you can coin your hypothesis in the same format I gave you. So now hypothesis, contextual factors like project governance, regulatory, social economic have no significant effect on sustainability and your goals. Then alternative hypothesis, contextual factors like governance, regulatory, social economic significantly affect what? Entrepreneurial activities. So that is how we do it. Is that clear?
Yes.
I don't know whether I'm making it complex or people sound too holy because they came from church. We are we are following.
We are following.
Okay. So we are done with 2.5 marks. Simple as that. This is how the question was supposed to be done. So every year you are going to have what? A conceptual framework. So conceptual framework does not miss. Okay? Conceptual framework does not miss. All right, so let's look at another question. So we're given a problem statement here. This problem statement was written by a Zambian researcher, Mr. Jerry. In today's digital era, it revolves around the new technologies that create value for companies and offer a host benefit. That's according to Somerville. Despite the advantages that technology evolution offers in business communication community, there has been little discussion of the impact on the service sector, particularly regarding the effect on performance knowledge-intensive business services. That's according to goals of 2022. Studies have shown the benefits of using highly innovative technologies such as blockchain, the Internet of Things, the big data, according to PICOT, understood the system of technologies. Some of the advantages relate to attracting, satisfying customers. Through improvements, the network cyber security enhancing capabilities and organizational learning and innovating. After reviewing previous contributions on the topic, two reflections emerge. First, a fourth industrial revolution, and therefore digitalization are broad concepts that encompass the use of numerous tools. Although these systems of interrelated technologies should be studied and promoted, they are not fully implemented in service companies. Not all companies are at the same stage of development in the process. Therefore, to implement these novel tools, to shed light on the topic, we must um, analyze performance effects of relatively simple digital tools that are accessible to any company and are considered part of digitalization. Second, no previous study has focused on financial performance as an outcome of the effect of KIBS. Janja et al. Means another, argue that KIBS have superior levels of profitability, productivity. However, factors or combination of factors have led to superior performance remain unknown. So we have references here in Harvard system. Okay. So we have questions to do. Here are the questions. Number one, after reading the following, being asked, has system strategy formulate a title for the relevant components, then formulate objectives, the research approach corresponding to the design, and also draw a conceptual framework for the proposed study, clearly stating the types of variables and explain to Mr. Jerry types of reliability. You can choose to discuss this. All right, let's speak now. I've been teaching this over and over. What topic can we formulate from the read-up? Can I beam the read-up again or what? What topic can we come up? what topics can we come up with? Okay, so I'll come up with any possible topics. You can choose any. Like I said, you're not limited to what topics you can choose, just based on how you understood. So from the read up, we can say number one, since we're talking about digitization, so the impact of digitization, customer satisfaction in knowledge intensive business services, example. Or we can say exploring the role of blockchain technology in enhancing service delivery, or the challenges of implementing IoT knowledge in intensive business services. You can also say financial performance and digitalization, a case study of knowledge intensive business services, or the influence of big data on decision making knowledge intensive business services in Zambia. So everything is pointing to what we're reading there. So can we pick one topic so that we can go by?
So, Colin, what will guide you to pick the topic in the long, long text in an exam? Because sometimes I've got so much to read. So, where do you concentrate?
Okay, so the question is, how do you focus on how do you identify the topic? Okay, because the topic comes from the read up. So once you read here, you look at the key theme, the constants. Okay, it's talking about digital era, okay, surrounding technology. So you can realize a number of topics from here. Okay, so what is the story behind there? Well, looking at particularly um, the effect it has on this institution, the knowledge intensive business services. So you can make a case study of this based on what storyline is coming. We're talking about digitization. So you need to highlight the key variables that are resounding in your read up. So as you can see here, we're looking at the impact of digitization on customer satisfaction in knowledge intensive business. So here there's digitization. There's also an issue of blockchain technology in enhancing service delivery. So we read something down here uh, regarding that. So there's an issue of digitization. There's an issue of um, so it's like a literature the way we used to do it at school, where you're being told a story and come up with a possible title for it. In short, so you need to really underscore the key theories there. Okay, there's an issue also of big data on decision making. Okay? The influence that big data has on decision making in knowledge intensive business. So here you can see it highlighted down there. Okay. I don't know whether I've answered your question. There's no clear-cut formula, but you just need to see around what the theme is. We're looking at also the focus on financial performance as an outcome. So this can also give you an idea that that would be our dependent variable. Okay. It's also looking at issues to do with um, performance of business intensive services. As our case, we also look at studies that have shown using innovative technologies like big blockchain. Okay, so these are all themes that you can gather up. So that's why there's no clear-cut answer in answering that alone. So like I said, now let's pick on one most resounding a topic that we can consider from what has been discussed. topic can we use?
We can use the first one.
Okay, we can use the first one. So the impact of what? Digitalization on customer satisfaction in knowledge-intensive business services in Zambia. All right, are we all agreeing to that? Okay, so
Yes, I think the first one is okay.
this one is okay. So our topic is what? The impact of digitization on customer satisfaction. Yeah, that's what we'll go by. So if that is our question, we'll go by what can be our specific objectives. So going by that, we can use specific objectives because the components that are there in the topic. So to come up with specific objectives, you need to identify the components that are there in the topic. So objectives come about from the components that you are going to look at. So here, the impact of digitization on what? The impact of digitization on customer satisfaction in knowledge intensive. So you formulated the topic. So the relevant constructs, we're looking at the word impact. We're looking at digitization. We're looking at what? Customer satisfaction. We're looking at knowledge-based services. We're looking at Zambia, specifically geographical areas. So we can use that to come up with the objectives, right? So what objectives can we come up? Number one, we can look at the relationship between digitization and customer uh, services. Okay, so we're going to look at what? The following objectives. Number one, the objectives must be between 3 and 5, by the way. To assess the relationship between digitalization and customer satisfaction, ABS Zambia. We evaluate the impact of digital tools like big data, blockchain, IoT on service quality, and also to identify the challenges faced by AIBS in Zambia in implementing digital technologies, and also to explore the factors that influence satisfaction. So now, before I move from here, I'll skip to the part of conceptual framework where I need you to identify the dependent variables and independent variables. Okay. So here we can um, we can draw based on the variables that we can see. What variables can we see there? Our independent variable is digitization. Okay. So we can come up with the independent variables, digitization, dependent variable can be customer satisfaction. Moderating variable can be um, service quality and technology. So we can come up from here, dependent variables. Okay. Moderating variables. Okay. So our independent variables, independent variables. The moderating variables, macro variables. Okay, so our independent variable will be what? Digitization. So digitization becomes our independent variable. Says this is our independent variable. Okay, digitization. Okay, then we go to our moderating variable. or dependent variable is customer satisfaction. Automatically, you can tell from here, customer satisfaction, it has on what customer satisfaction. This is the impact included on customer satisfaction. So this is customer satisfaction. When they're doing variables, we're looking at what will affect the strength, service quality, and technological access. Okay, service quality, technology. Macro variables, extraneous variables. If you want, you can use what? Company size, and where we know that larger companies have more resources to implement digital tools, and maybe customer demographics like age, education. Okay, so you can look at customer demographics and company size. Okay, size of the company. So this is how the conceptual framework can be formulated. Are we together? So you're not limited. There's no single clear-cut formula that you will use. You just need to understand the concepts that we've been talking about. Are we together? Any question? Okay, so we now go to the part where we're going to talk about the conceptual framework. What is the approach that we're going to use, the research design that is going to be used here? So our conceptual framework is also able to guide us on the appropriate design that we're going to use. Okay, so what is our appropriate research design for what we have done? Is a quantitative or a qualitative approach that we're going to use? Remember from the topic, are we going to use a quantitative or qualitative approach? It's quantitative, right? So we're going to use a quantitative approach for the study. So the approach that we will use will be quantitative. So what quantitative elements are we going to look at? The impact that it will have on digitization, on customer satisfaction. So to require you measuring satisfaction using surveys and performance matrices. In the research design, we can use a descriptive design to help us understand the current status of digitization, the effects it has on customer satisfaction, and also allow the researcher to describe the patterns of digitization. Okay. And also, we can use a correlational design since it involves you assessing relationships. Whenever you're dealing with relationships, correlation design is appropriate. We're going to look at digitization as an independent variable and satisfaction as a dependent variable. In statistical analysis, we're going to use what? Descriptive statistics. We're going to calculate our mean, median to summarize the survey responses on satisfaction. And also, you can use additional correlation. We end here. Thank you so much for your time. We've answered what we need. For reliability, we've discussed this over and over. This one you can answer on your own. The types of reliability and the method of apportion. So we end here. Have a good day. Thank you for your time. Everything is already in the pamphlets, so please read the pamphlets thoroughly. It's only 400 watch.